reasonable time for people to be able to come back, get a job, and then turn their lives around. But what we've seen in the past under this administration is extending benefits up to 99 weeks. I don't support that. I think if you have people who are out of work that long a period of time, it's without question makes it harder to find work when you come back. When you're that long away from a job, then you lose certain skills. You lose a lot of things when you're out of work, and there's a lot of research to show that to be the case. And so what I believe is, just like I did with welfare reform when we reformed welfare, we sent it back to the states, and we gave the states the flexibility to design these programs, just as I would do here with unemployment insurance. It should go back to the states, let the states design it. If South Carolina, because of a unique situation, wants to have a longer unemployment period of time because of a unique situation here, fine. But to have a federal program that roughly and crudely tries to assess the problem of unemployment from state to state and area to area is the wrong approach. What we should do is have it just like welfare. Give it to the states, put a time limit. In the case of welfare, it was 40 weeks. Give flexibility to states to operate those programs. And even in unemployment, I mean, you can have, as we did on welfare, have some sort of either work requirement or job training required, and as a condition. We're not doing people any favors by keeping them on unemployment insurance for a long period of time.
Speaker Gingrich, Senator Santorum just mentioned it. The surge in unemployment has created these so-called 99ers, people who collect benefits for the maximum 99 weeks offered now. What is the maximum length anyone should be able to collect unemployment checks?
Well, you know, Brett, I think there's a better way to think about this. All unemployment compensation should be tied to a job training requirement. If somebody can't find a job, and they show up and they say, you know, I need help, the help we ought to give them is to get them connected to a business-run training program to acquire the skills to be employable. Now, the fact is, 99 weeks is an associate degree. It tells you, I think it tells you everything. I hope my four colleagues would agree here. It tells you everything you need to know about the difference between Barack Obama and the five of us, that we actually think work is good. We actually think saying to somebody, I'll help you if you're willing to help yourself is good. And we think unconditional efforts by the best food stamp president in American history to maximize dependency is terrible for the future of this country.
Kelly Evans.
Governor Romney, core European nations have just been downgraded, and several are only able to raise funds because of help from central banks. As president, you could immediately be faced with another financial crisis, perhaps this time sparked in Europe. This is not some imaginary event. How far would you be willing to go to keep the financial system functioning?
Well, of course we want to keep our financial system functioning, but we've learned some lessons from the experience of the last several years. What you don't want to do is to give the president or anyone else a blank check or a slush fund to take care of their friends or take care of industries or companies they think they want to save. What we have to do What we have to do is to recognize that bankruptcy can be a process, reorganization for banks as well as other institutions that allow them to get rid of their excess costs, to reestablish a sound foundation, and to emerge stronger. We're seeing that as a result of the bankruptcy in the auto industry. We could see that in our banking sector as well, if a bank or two get in trouble. And so the right course for us is not to think we have to go run over to Europe to try and save their banking system or to try and pump money into the banks here in this country. This is time for us to recognize that the system of laws we have and the free enterprise system works. And we don't need government stepping in with regulations and higher taxes and telling us what we can and cannot do as a society to try and keep America strong. The best way to get America's economy going is not to think about how much we can push government into the American economy, but instead how much we can get government out of the American economy. And our tax rates Our tax rates are too high on individuals as well as on our employers. Our regulations are too burdensome. Regulators see themselves as the opponents of free enterprise as opposed to those that encourage it. We have an energy policy that doesn't take advantage of our natural resources. That makes no sense. We need our oil, our coal, our gas, our nuclear. And finally, we need to open up new markets. This president has opened up no new markets for American goods around the world in his 3 years, even as European nations and China have opened up 44. We have to have a policy to open markets, put Americans to work. That's the answer, not bailouts.
Jerry Saab has the next question.
Congressman Paul, South Carolina has 7 major military bases and thousands of people employed in the defense industry. But you want to make major cuts in defense spending, several $100 billion in the coming years, that inevitably would cost South Carolina jobs. What do you say to people in this state who worry that your military plans would hurt the national security and cost South Carolina jobs?
I would say your questions suggest you're very confused about my position. I want to cut money, overseas money. That's what I want to do. I want to cut military money. I don't want to cut defense money. I want to bring the troops home. I'd probably have more bases here at home. We were closing them down in the 1990s and building them overseas. That's how we got into trouble. So we would save a lot more money and have a stronger national defense, and that's what we should do. But to say that we would be weaker is absolutely wrong, because and another important thing you should consider is the fact that the military is behind me more than the others. I get twice as much money from the active military duties than all the other candidates put together. So they're saying that I'm on the right track. They're sick and tired of those wars. They're sick and tired of the nation building and the policing activity. But to say that we would have less money for defense, we actually have more money. And if I may, I'd like to go back to the international financial thing.
So, Congressman, just to be clear, your plan calls for freezing defense spending at 2006 levels, which is well below where we are today.
You still don't understand.
What's he missing, Congressman?
You don't understand there's a difference between military spending and defense spending. Just because you spend $1 billion on an embassy in Baghdad, bigger than the Vatican, you consider that defense spending. I consider that waste. So now, if you want to, a little while ago, we were talking about, funding the unemployed. Of course, that should be privatized, and I don't support it. But I don't support cutting that off like that. I'd cut some of this military spending, like Eisenhower advised us. Watch out for the military-industrial complex. Defend this country. We have to have a strong national defense, but we don't get strength by diluting ourselves in 900 bases, 130 countries. That is where the problem is. But you need to understand that there's a difference between just military spending and defense spending, just to spend money. We understand this domestically. If you spend more money domestically, we know it's wrong, but we're supposed to spend more money, and that's conservative. I've never quite understood this. We're supposed to be conservative, spend less money.
I'd like to ask a question about keeping money for all of the candidates down the line. What is the highest federal income tax any American should have to pay? We're looking for a number.
20%. Flat tax. Simple. Keep it simple.
Senator Santorum.
My plan has 2 rates, 10 and 28%, which is the highest rate under Ronald Reagan when he cut taxes.
Governor Romney.
I'd like to get it down to 25%, but right now it's at 35%, so people better pay what's legally required. But ultimately, let's get it down as low as we possibly can. If it's 20, if it's 25, but paying more than 25%, I think is taking too much out of our pockets.
So the highest you had was 35.
Well, that's what the law is right now. But 25 is where I'd like to see us go.
Speaker Gingrich.
I'd like to see it be a flat tax at 15%, and I'd like to see us reduce government to meet the revenue, not raise revenue to meet the government.
Congressman Paul.
Well, we should have the lowest tax that we've ever had, and up until 1913, it was 0%. What's so bad about that? Now, I would like to follow up on that because I think the question on taxes is generally misleading because anytime you spend money, it's a tax. You might tax, you might borrow, you might inflate. The vicious tax is attacking the American people, the retired people today, is the inflation tax. The devaluation of the currency, the standard of living is going down, and you need to address that. And that's why I want to make the inflation tax zero as well.
So your answer is zero.
Zero.
Okay, about taxes, Kelly?
Governor Romney, Speaker Gingrich, Senator Santorum, and now vocally tonight, Senator Perry, Governor Perry, are calling for you to release your tax records. The Obama campaign is asking for the same thing. Governor, will you release your income tax records?
You know, I looked at what has been done in campaigns in the past with Senator McCain and President George W. Bush and others. They've tended to release tax records in April or tax season. I hadn't planned on releasing tax records because the law requires us to release all of our assets, all the things we own. That I've already released. It's a pretty full disclosure. But you know, if that's been the tradition, and I'm not opposed to doing that, time will tell. But I anticipate that most likely I'm going to get asked to do that around the April time period, and I'll keep that open.
Governor, you will plan then to release your income tax records around April?
I think I've heard enough from folks saying, look, you know, let's see your tax records. I have nothing in them that suggests there's any problem, and I'm happy to do so. I sort of feel like we're showing a lot of exposure at this point, and if I become our nominee, and what's happened in history is people have released them in about April of the coming year, and that's probably what I do.
Okay, next round of questions, Juan Williams.
Governor Romney, your father was born in Mexico. You still have family there. Yet you have taken the hardest line of anyone on this stage on immigration reform, including opposition to key parts of the DREAM Act, which is supported by 80% of Latinos in this country. Are you alienating Latino voters that Republicans will need to win the general election?
You know, I think Latino voters, like all voters in this country, are interested in America being an opportunity nation. People come here because they believe they want to have a brighter future, and that's been the story of America. The president looks out across the country and says it could be worse. I can't believe saying that. The American people recognize it's got to be better. In my view, as long as we communicate to the people of all backgrounds in this country that it can be better and that America is a land of opportunity, we'll get those votes. Now, with regards to immigration policy, I absolutely believe that those who come here illegally should not be given favoritism or a special route to becoming permanent residents or citizens that's not given to those people that have stayed in line legally. I just think we have to follow the law. I think that's the right course. And I've indicated I would veto the DREAM Act if provisions included in that act say that people who are here illegally, if they go to school here long enough, get a degree here, that they can become permanent residents. I think that's a mistake. I think we have to follow the law and insist that those that have come here illegally ultimately return home, apply, get in line with everyone else. Look, I want people to know I love legal immigration. We're almost all of us in this room are descendants of immigrants or are immigrants ourselves. Our nation is stronger and more vibrant by virtue of a strong legal immigration system. I welcome that. But to protect our legal immigration system, we have got to protect our borders and stop the flood of illegal immigration, and I will not do anything that opens up another wave of illegal immigration.
Senator Santorum, the Obama administration has not specifically addressed high levels of joblessness and a 25% poverty rate in Black America. They say they want to fix the economy for all. But given the crisis situation among a group of historically disadvantaged Americans, do you feel the time has come to take special steps to deal with the extraordinary level of poverty afflicting one race of Americans?
It's very interesting. If you look at a study that was done by the Brookings Institute back in 2009, they determined that if Americans do three things, they can avoid poverty. Three things: work, graduate from high school, and get married before you have children. Those three things those three things, if you do, according to Brookings, results in only 2% of people who do all those things ending up in poverty, and 77% above the national average in income. It's a huge, huge opportunity for us. But what is the Obama administration doing? Elaine Bennett runs a program called Best Friends, the wife of Bill Bennett. And she told me through Bill that the Obama administration